Life Changers, Inc. And with me is my wonderful co-host, Sheila Hardy, the founder and CEO of Because It's Personal, Inc. So, Sheila, what are we talking about today?
Oh, wow. We have an awesome guest today. He's a must-have if anyone wants to start a small business. He's just awesome. His name is David Pyoas, and I'm not pronouncing it right, but that's okay. He said it's all right. He's the CEO and president of a private consulting firm called DB Pyoas Associates LLC. His consulting firm specializes in small business development and grant writing. David, thank you for being here.
Sheila, Ericka, thank you for having me, and we look forward to a lively and informative discussion.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first, before we go any further, say your last name. Say your name.
My
say
last
your name.
Is Pyoas.
Okay, everybody heard it here. It's Pyoas. Okay.
Pyoas, right?
That's
Pyoas.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Actually,
Okay.
there's a story behind that I'll share with you a little bit later.
No, tell us now.
Tell you now?
Yeah.
Well, actually, the correct spelling of my last name is Pyoas. Pyoas. My great-great-great-grandfather name was Peter Pyoas. Peter Pyoas was a part of a slave revolt, actually, that took place in Charleston in the year of 1822. Peter was considered a master tactician, an organizer, and he handpicked by the leader of the revolt, a man by the name of Denmark Vesey. And Peter actually came up with the idea of establishing what we now know, in some parlance, to be cells, where certain people would only know certain parts of the plan. And that way, in case something happened, in which it eventually did, no one could divulge the entire scope of what was being planned. Unfortunately, Denmark and the other organizers of the revolt, one of the members of our community decided to tell his owner what was going on, and Peter was eventually hanged by the neck. However, it is written, and it is done. One of the last things that Peter said prior to being executed was to die as you see me do, die as a man. And
wow.
Those were his last words.
Wow. That's some big shoes to fill. Good Lord.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I could remember, I grew up in Charleston, by the way.
Okay.
And I could remember when I was a real small boy, my great-grandmother, who was blind, we would, in the evenings, under the cool breeze, we lived near the coast, and we would sit in the swing on the front porch, and she would tell me stories about my ancestry and an understanding of my history, my origins, the things that she endured as a woman, as a black woman, and it has served to with a better sense of who I am, a better appreciation for my purpose in life, and for that I will be eternally grateful.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, okay, I'm still in awe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I am. I'm still in awe. There's a lot of stories out there that haven't been told, and these are one of them.
Yeah. Well, actually, the story of Denmark Vesey and my ancestor actually can be found in a well-known book. It's called a book entitled Before the Mayflower, written by Ron Bennett, and his exploits are chronicled. There's another book by a Robert Starvin that also chronicles the exploits of Denmark Vesey and my ancestor, so Peter Pyoas. So it's in writing. It's a part of American history.
So, in which generation did it become pious?
That happened during my lifetime. There was a, if you will, at the hospital, and it was never changed. It was part of my official document. So that's how that happened.
Oh, wow. And you never wanted to change it back?
I've thought about it, and maybe it is something that I will do at some point.
Okay, interesting. Okay, back on track, 'cause, we'll go down that history rabbit hole forever.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, tell us how you got into this type of business.
Well, my professional career, I'm technically trained. I started out my professional career actually as an oceanographer, and I had the unique opportunity of working in an area here in the Northeast, area in Massachusetts, Cape Cod, Woods Hole, Massachusetts.
Wow.
And if anyone knows anything about Woods Hole, they realize that Woods Hole is considered to be the Mecca, if you will, when it comes to oceanographic research. There were a number of organizations, three primary organizations in Woods Hole. There was WHOI, or the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. There's MBL, the Marine Biological Laboratory, and there is the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is part of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I worked with NOAA, and it was truly great. It was one of the first times that I had the opportunity to actually out on research vessels, and that in itself was an experience. When you're out to sea for weeks at a time, and there's nothing around you, there's no land in sight. I've been in situations, particularly and I must say, during my first experience actually happened in January.
Oh,
and I had just moved really to Massachusetts from South Carolina, and had not really acclimated to that kind of cold weather. I can remember being on board a ship, and the gunnels of the ship, frozen. The guidelines, the wires are all frozen. The ship was rocking every which way, and they're 20-foot seas, but we're there to do work. We're there to do research, and you just got to suck it up and do what you want to do, and so that was I left a great part of me in the Atlantic Ocean.
I was trying to hold it in.
In the Atlantic Ocean, but it was a fantastic opportunity. It has served me well over the years. Now, my area of specialization was age and growth analysis. And what we were able to do, I was tasked to collect hard tissue parts from fish, and that included, but it also included there's a hard tissue part in the head of a fish called an otolith. And the way that you determine the age of a fish is with scales, for example, looking at the scale under the microscope and counting the rings. Just like if you did a cross section of a tree trunk and you see the rings on the tree, and that will determine how old that tree is.
I was just about to ask that.
The same principle applies with fish, and also with that hard tissue part, that otolith, inside the head of the fish. And so that's something that I did. I enjoyed doing. It was challenging. I also worked with shellfish. I had the opportunity to actually publish an international publication and that paper was well received in the scientific community, so much so that it was presented in Copenhagen at the International Council for the Exploration of the Sea.
And what was the name of that paper?
Ocean Quahaugs.
Okay. You broke up when you were saying that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Were you in school or you had graduated when you were doing this?
That year, I was still an undergrad, and after I completed a semester at Woods Hole, I went back to school, and then I went back to Woods Hole, was employed as a federal employee.
Oh, I was going to say, and now from there, because I'm trying to link the two from that, playing with fish to business. Where did you even pick this? Where did you even get the knack for this?
Well, yeah. As a scientist, as a researcher, you live and die by your abilities to generate funding to do your research, right?
Yeah.
So grants were very much a part of that process, and so that was it became very easy for me to transition or utilize that skill set to what I'm doing now. Now I also had the opportunity to participate in various seminars while at Woods Hole, and discovered that I found people even more fascinating. I found the little bee worked with. So I went back to school, went to grad school, and had the opportunity to work on Capitol Hill. I worked as a Senate staffer with the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. That was a totally different experience. It was, in some respects, it was even a mind-blowing experience. As being able to walk the halls of Congress and rub elbows with the Ted Kennedys and folks, Christopher Dodd, people that you would see on TV. Today you would see them on CNN. Actually interact with them on a regular basis was phenomenal.
Wow.
So, but how this all ties into business, in 2000, I had just resigned from working with the Salvation Army in New York, where I served as director of operations, and having once again with a nonprofit organization, and understanding how nonprofits assisted with addressing various socio issues that we're plagued with, that we're challenged with here. Decided to do my own thing, and initially we started as primarily as a grant writer, and we found some success once again primarily with nonprofit organizations. However, with success, as the word got out, because basically we worked word of mouth was our primary source of advertising and marketing, if you will. People who had or wanted to start a business, and they would ask me, "Well, David, I have this idea for a business, and I don't have the funds to do it. Can you get me a grant to get me started?" We had some success in that arena as well. However, one of the things that I realized, and as the scientist in me wanted to be able to track the success of those organizations that we helped.
Right.
And what we realized was that in some cases, in some instances, even those persons who had been capitalized adequately, their businesses failed. And wanting to understand why that happened. Once again, that's the scientist in me, wanting to know why, wanting to understand. We recognized was that, for example, someone wanting to open up a restaurant, who had previous experiences as a cook. Well, just because you're a good cook doesn't necessarily mean that you're a successful restaurateur.
Yes.
Right? So we sort of pivoted in order to our clients. We wanted to help them to truly understand what was necessary. Transition from being an employee to being an employer. And we developed actually a training module, if you will. A major part of that module was an assessment tool that we use to help someone understand, okay, you're a cook today, you want to be a restaurateur, do you have the right stuff? And there were a series of questions that they would answer, and then we would evaluate that after they had completed that assessment tool to help them understand, okay, things that are required in order to succeed, hopefully succeed in your business. These are the gaps that we've identified. So here are some of the things you're going to need to address whatever deficiencies you currently have in order to succeed in your business. Yeah, that could range from understanding HR issues, understanding accounting, a whole suite of different things that go into actually running a business and sustaining that business over time. So currently, DB Pyoas Associates LLC, we have two divisions. We have a business development, business management division, and we have a fund development grant writing division.
Okay. And so on grants, tell us, what is the largest grant you have been awarded? Or that you've written that has been awarded?
$9 million.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. And then that was a 1 year or like over 3 or 4 years?
Over 4 years.
Okay.
Over 4 years.
Wow. Now, okay, this is the issue Sheila and I have come across, and it is grants for new nonprofits. So you're familiar with the ARPA, right? The American Recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Cobb County, Georgia, and we just had a
Mm-hmm.
webinar about it, and I asked, you could type in questions. So I asked, can a brand new nonprofit do this, apply? And do we have, and I asked three different questions to make sure I got the right answer. Were 990s, which are the tax forms that are required that a nonprofit has to file, were those
Mm-hmm.
required? And how long did the nonprofit have to be in business? So I was coming at it from, three different directions. And they said, no, they encourage brand new nonprofits. So now you were talking about getting funding for someone who didn't have the funding to get started. So I'm going to ask you about that in a second, or I want you to touch on that in a second, please. But with a brand new nonprofit, what tips and tricks do you have to get them funded?
A startup business or startup organization um, actually will tends to be met with challenges. Uh, for example, organizations in general, and I'm speaking in general terms
Right.
now, tend to be less inclined to fund an organization with no history of having received grants in the past. Oftentimes, um, and particularly in today's climate, oftentimes organizations are asked with other organizations that may be more established to gain better footing, to gain if you will, a greater sense of credibility. Um, and then second, most grant makers, because monies have been a little bit tighter recently, have been in some years, um, it just makes more sense to them because it tends to provide a greater return on the investment. That'd be one strategy. The other strategy is and probably what's probably most important is to have your collective acts together. And what I mean by that is having a good board of directors, um, having set up your accounting system, um, uh, having even something seemingly innocuous is just having a dedicated bank account for your organization. Um, Nowadays, also having a website, having a social media presence. But here's key, and if no one gets anything else from me other than what I'm about to say, and this is it. This is a David axiom. Okay, needs don't get funded, programs do.
Right.
And
That's true.
there may be a grant to do something, but if you don't have a program in place, if you don't have a program address a specific need that's truly needed in our society, um, you probably won't find much success. And within that program, as a grant maker, what I'm looking for is how are you going to measure the efficacy of your program? How do you know that your program is, what metrics are you using to evaluate how well you're doing your job, how well you're spending the grant maker's money. So that's paramount. Secondly, I would say that having a well thought out strategic plan, having a well thought out fund development that provides you with multiple income streams. And what I mean by that, there are different types and different pools of money that you could avail yourself upon. They range from government grants, they range from corporate support, they range from foundation support, and also from individuals. So having a plan of action that will to tap into all of these different pools of money to not just fund you for today, but to sustain your organization over a period of time. And then within that fund development plan, there probably needs to be a mechanism, a program that provides for what's known as a capital campaign. A capital campaign that it's ongoing. You set a goal, and you establish different modes of attack, if you will, or action plan to achieve that particular end. You see it particularly with some of the larger nonprofit organizations like the Red Cross or the United Way.
Right.
All of these larger nonprofit organizations have an ongoing capital campaign. So those are the things. And there are others that come into play. A few years back, crowdsourced funding became in vogue. Crowdsourced funding is a platform like a GoFundMe, for example. That's one of the more common ones. And there are several others that will allow people from around the world to fund your program. So there are a number of different things that profit, for example, can do that will assist them with sustaining their organization over a period of years.
Okay. What would you say is the top priority that a new nonprofit needs to focus on? Is it getting the accounting? Because you named a few things, and I'm trying to keep mental note. Is it getting the accounting system in place, getting the programs up or at least on paper? What would you say is the first thing they need to concentrate on?
Well, obviously, the first step would be to do the required filings with whatever state you're being recognized as a nonprofit organization. I also encourage my client adopt many of the principles that work in the private sector, in the for-profit sector, because hey, the reality is, even if you're a nonprofit, and what that actually means, you still have to operate like a business,
right?
Because you are, for all intents, you are a business,
right?
So having various protocol in place that provides for structure, that provides for accountability, are paramount. So I don't know if I answered your question, but just having that structure in place, having a plan, either if you want to call it a business plan, a strategic plan, those are the things that will serve you well, because with a business plan or a strategic plan, that's like your roadmap. For example, If I tell you, Ericka, we're leaving from Atlanta and we're going to, okay, and you don't have a GPS, you don't have and I'm dating myself, you don't have an atlas or road map.
What's that?
How do you get there? Which way do you go? And oftentimes, those organizations that fail, those organizations that don't do as well as they could do, is because they don't have a roadmap. So having that strategic plan in place, I think it's paramount. It's extremely important.
Okay, what's the difference between a business plan and a strategic plan?
Well, a strategic plan is a broader scope of work. A strategic plan would include or could include your business plan. And within that business plan would include your mission, your vision, your value statements. It would also your marketing strategy. How do you plan to market your organization? It will also include, and very important, your financials, your budget. Okay. And that's something that many organizations, particularly in the nonprofit sector, fail to really, truly grasp and appreciate. Because you have to understand not only where the money are coming from, but how those monies will be allocated, how those monies will be spent. And to piggyback on your accounting, being able to have a good bookkeeping system in place, so you don't get in trouble not only with the IRS or the Internal Revenue Service, but also with the persons who are providing you with funding.
Right. Okay, and I guess this is kind of because I come from the for-profit space and that went well. This here was a whole nother story. So my question is, when you're new, how do you know where those dollars are coming from? How do you know how that will be spent?
Well, that's a good question. Sometimes you don't. You don't know exactly where the dollars are going to come from. And you will partner. It would be prudent to partner with a more established nonprofit organization, because then that kind of takes some of the weight off. But where you don't, that's why it's important to have a fund development plan. And that it may be necessary to hire someone like myself. Now, we've been in business for over, 22 years? I think it's been. And we have actually 86% percentage success rate for being awarded grants based on the number of applications
Wonderful.
that we submit, which is far and above industry standard.
Yes.
So you may have to hire someone who understands the process. Anyone can submit a grant application. But what I found, Ericka and Sheila, is grant writing is an art form.
It is.
Okay? It's the difference. Do you remember the paint by numbers?
Yep. I was real good at
that. Yeah. Anyone can paint by the numbers, but there are very few Picassos. There are very few Jonathan Greens. Okay? So that's the difference. You can either paint by the numbers, or you could hire someone like a Picasso or Jonathan Green and get yourself a masterpiece.
Okay, and what is Picasso in the grant in the grant writing space? what is that
What
cost?
I mean by that is someone who is good at what they do.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, and I know this. Okay, let's just talk about DB Pyoas. What do you charge? I come to you. I'm brand new. I don't even have my 501c3 yet. First of all, can I even get a grant?
What a 501c3 does, provide grant maker or the person providing you with funding the opportunity to write something off
Right,
on their business, on their taxes, because what that means is that you are a tax exempt charitable organization.
right,
Okay. And so it looks good on their books at the end of the year that they've done this. It also part of their own marketing strategy, a part of their own so if you will, that they're giving back to the community.
right.
They're providing for a common good. And it's not just about profit maximization, but it gives an organization of humanity. Okay. So once again, having your in place provides you with greater entree, if you will, to receive funding from an organization. If a funder had the opportunity to fund a project with someone who was, in fact, someone who is, in fact, a tax exempt organization vis-a-vis someone who is not, then the person who is tax exempt obviously has the greater chance of being awarded. Now, there are opportunities for for-profit organizations to receive grants. Okay? I do it all the time. Even my company, I've been awarded grants. I'm totally for-profit, but
Right.
I've been awarded grants. So,
Okay.
okay? So you can get a grant if you are a for-profit organization, but it tends to be narrow in scope. It's usually not about providing for addressing any particular socio-economic situation that may currently ongoing within society. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely answered the question. What does just a broad scope? I come to you and I say, "Hey, David, I'd like you to write me a grant." That would be one of the blanket grants where all I have to do is change the executive summary, based on my prison reentry program. What does that run?
Well, I would love to give you a clear-cut answer, but each situation is addressed based on exactly what that person is attempting to do. If he or she has a dollar amount in mind, have we already identified a particular funder? If the proposal, if you will, only requires minor edit, whatever that, however you want to define a minor edit. But we look at each case on a case by case basis and a determination based on that.
So you don't have, okay, I'm sorry, I lied. I'm sorry, Sheila. Wait a minute. Because I spoke with someone and they have, I thought it was a pretty cool, almost like a membership grant writing, program. So you pay, this amount of money for the whole year and, you get 3 or 4 edits, uh, for the year. Like if you need the executive summary, but it's based off of your program. So with me being a prison reentry program, she's like, okay, well, If you need a 7-page, because some are like we need a 7-page grant, we need a 10-page grant, and she would change that. But for the most part, you're using the same grant proposal. You just make those minor edits, like you said. But you're saying yours is literally grant by grant proposal.
I don't do blanket proposals because
Gotcha.
every funder requires different things. And I, personal feeling, I feel as though I would be doing by, I'm not knocking how anybody else does their thing. If that works for them, well, but it's just been my experience that whatever we is tailor made to that specific client. And maybe it's like, for example, grabbing a suit off the rack and putting that suit on as opposed to a bespoke suit that is tailor made specifically for that individual based on his body shape. Maybe one sleeve is longer than the other, so that has to be accommodated. One leg is longer than the other, that needs to be accommodated. So however that person's body shape is, then that's how that suit is tailored for that particular individual. And oftentimes you can tell the difference between a bespoke suit or a suit that has been tailored for that individual as opposed to one where this guy just grabs a suit off the rack.
Right.
And so that's the difference between what we do and what someone else might do.
Okay, so with that being said, what's your starting? I know it can go up to heaven. What's your starting grant writing proposal? Fee. Yes, thank you. Fee.
I have to be honest with you. We do have a brochure, but I don't really deal with that side of things. So what I would encourage someone to do if they're interested in soliciting our services would be to touch base with us, and we could provide them with a list of our services and as well as what the fees would be for whatever it is that they're wanting to do.
Okay, well, before we wrap it up, we will definitely ask, we'll have you share that information. So let's take a break. Let's pause and give a shout out to Ashley of Greater ATL Web Design. The reason why you're hearing this podcast, wherever you're hearing it, is because Ashley does such an awesome job at marketing, and she is definitely worth mentioning. So if you're interested in reaching out to Ashley, you can email her at greateratlwebdesign@gmail.com. If you didn't get that, you can go to our website, thecnnpodcast.com, and go to the Contact Us page, and you will get Ashley's email there. And make sure you mention the CNN Podcast to get that discount.
All right. And I just want to say that with David, it's because it's personal. And that's so it's tailor made. I know because he works for me.
And works hard for you, because I can only imagine.
and works very hard for me.
Yes.
So that's another shout out that it's because it's personal. So that's pretty cool. All right. Well, David, are you ready to play the game?
It's truly been a late.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I said it's true. I'm enjoying the experience with you.
Aww.
Well, it's a journey. It is a journey. It is an awesome journey. I've learned so much in the past 4 months, 6 months, and it has been a spectacular journey. I've seen some of you that are listening to us, if you're not spiritual or whatever, I'm sorry, but it has been an awesome experience spiritually for
Call us,
me.
call us, call us. We're here to deliver you
So
right up to Jesus.
yeah, it's that's really been awesome. So and we're still experiencing him. So that's how that goes. But I wanted to ask you some questions, and it's our segment of what would you do. So the first question, David, here's the rules. You have to answer the question. You can't say pass. You can't say I take the fifth.
Well,
None of
Sheila,
that.
you have on Capitol Hill.
I be
I know.
So,
I'm tempted to call him Mr. Vanilla.
so, one things that I learned, one of my favorite responses to questions was this. I would respond that I would have to give a positive response. However, I reserve the right of a negative reaction should contingencies arise of which I've not been apprised.
Oh my gosh.
I'm dropping the mic.
Oh, we
Well,
got to get a mic.
in,
We
in
got to
my
get a mic so we
during
can
my
drop
short
it.
stint at John Jay College for Criminal Justice, I know exactly what you just said. My name is Bennett, and I ain't in it. That's what they say.
Okay, well, here's the first question.
Okay?
What advice would you give to today's teenagers?
Focus.
Very good.
Focus. Have vision. What's interesting is that I've been with mentoring young people,
Okay.
and one of the things that became very clear is that, particularly with young black men, is that their vision had become so obscured. Many of them, a great number of them, didn't feel or believe that they would live past 24.
Yep.
And that was scary. That is very scary, that you so little belief and faith that you don't see yourself living I'm talking 17, 18-year-olds living beyond the age of 24.
Mm.
So
Can you see why?
yeah, I certainly get it. Certainly get it. I was very much hands-on. For example, my mentee, just going into his neighborhood, picking him up we'd go out to lunch or go out and hit some golf ball and just talk about life, but the environment in which he had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. People don't understand that, and I know, Sheila, this is something near and dear to your heart, is the kind of emotional trauma that these young people deal with.
Every day.
Having these young folks at 12 and 13 walking around with a gun in their hip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And feeling like if they don't have a gun, then they can't protect themselves because something's going to happen. Or this young man living in a house with his mother and siblings and, people shooting up the house, just random acts of violence and having to deal with that sort of thing. See, to a lot of us in suburbia, if you will, or we live in a different part of town. that the only time we see or hear about those things it's on the news.
Right.
But this is something that these kids live through on a daily basis. So we don't understand, we don't appreciate how that kind of trauma affects them emotionally, how it affects them spiritually, how it affects them physically. And so I do get it. I do get it.
Well, we have one more question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. But this is really great. But here's your question. If you can change one thing in the world, what would it be?
Wow. Only one thing, huh?
Yeah, sorry about that.
If I could change one thing in the world, if I could change this one thing in this world, if I had the power to do so, that we would all have an appreciation and a relationship with the God of your understanding.
Wow.
I was going to say, because I truly believe in the scripture Philippians is that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say understanding, though, that's saying, okay, well, Allah is my God, so that's who you would want them to have a relationship with? Or did I misunderstand the way you said that?
Well, when I say the God of your understanding, for me, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I consider myself to be a Christian. I've also had the opportunity to live throughout the world. I've visited a lot of places throughout the world, and I have good friends, brothers who will, and they're not bad people. They do good things. They do some very positive things to make a positive change in the world. So what works for me, that works for me, but that doesn't negate that someone who calls God by a different name should be discarded or discounted.
Gotcha. Okay. Just so we're all on the same page. Okay. So now, David, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. Great. Well, you can reach me at my website at www.dbpyoas.com, or you could reach me at 843-905-3558.
Okay.
You spelled your name. You did not say it. Ah.
That's all right. It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, this was really great. We're going to have you back again, of course.
Of course.
Because I'm sure that we're going to get people to to list some questions that we may not have gotten into, and
Sure.
we got to get you back. So.
Well, I'd be happy to come back and discuss with you in more detail, if you will, about the different types of grants.
Great.
First of all, what is a grant? A grant is monies that free monies that you don't have to pay back. And the different types of grants.
Right.
And, where do you go to actually find grant monies? Provide them with some resource materials, if you will. So,
wonderful.
yeah, I definitely love to do that. Part of my mission is being able to impart information
Great.
to someone. So yeah, that definitely we're here to help.
So
Wonderful.
that will be actually part 2.
Okay.
When we do that, we'll just talk about the grants and go from there. That would be great.
Well,
Okay.
you know, and I'll just say this, and it just so you have something to think about. I would like David to speak about how nonprofits can also raise money through forming a for-profit under the nonprofit. You know what I mean?
Say that again. What? Say that again, please.
When you were saying nonprofits, you know, raising money and put that in their strategic plan and business plan in the financials, how nonprofits can also raise money as with a for-profit arm of their nonprofit.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's it's called earned income.
Right. Well, no, we're not going to talk
Okay.
about it now. We're going to say that for part 2. Grants and earned income. That's it.
Part two.
Yeah, because I'll sit here and talk about that all day long. So, Sheila, you want to take us out of here?
Okay, well, I'm gonna take you out of here. Take us all out of here. You know, it's always good for our listeners to know what's going on out there. And you know, Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change. See ya.
As always, be awesome and be blessed.